Hello, hello. So I wanted to talk about this section that I created that's called my editing process. And really, this is all focused on helping you record what works best for you and really get into the nitty gritty of defining what system works best for you, finding ways to tweak that system and improve it, all so that you can save time and money as you finish and publish manuscripts. So, this is really, what is it that you do right now after you complete a first draft? What is your process between completing the first draft and then getting to the final step of publishing? So, what do you do in between? What are all those little steps? So, let's get that recorded. And then on this page, I just kind of ask you some questions about what you use to clean up your manuscript, because sometimes our brains are just so saturated in the content that we've created that it's really hard to see what isn't working or find those missing words or those duplicated words. I'm a big I'm very guilty of using that, or and, or duplicating those small words that are really hard to catch when your mind already knows what you're telling, so it will fill in the gaps for you. It will gloss over those errors. Even if you're reading aloud, I have failed to catch something. So definitely there are some ways to use apps like Grammarly and Hemingway, or different apps to clean up your manuscript so that you don't have to rely just on a tired brain. And it makes it really easy, like when you're tired, to just throw it into Grammarly or Hemingway, or I love AutoCrit to really get a deep dive and automate more of the editing process. I'll throw it in there, and then in the morning, because my brain just works best in the morning, I will do my editing through AutoCrit first thing in the morning, chapter by chapter. So this really helps automate the editing process and helps me get it really cleaned up so that when I send it to an editor, I'm not paying for tons of their time. I'm just paying for the minimum of what it should require, and I'm making sure that they don't hate working with me. If I find a really good editor, I want to stick with that person, and I want to make sure that they love working with me, so they'll make me a priority. But in any case, it really does, this page just asks you to consider these things if you haven't before, and it also asks you in this section right here, what other things can you do to help you save time and money? What can you do to save your editor's sanity and clean up this manuscript as much as possible, or any manuscript as much as possible, before you send it to an editor? So again, go through there, kind of dive deep and start thinking about that. Now on this page, my editing checklist, I created this because my grandmother, who's been publishing forever, she's been a writer for well before I was around this earth. But anyway, she is amazing and she's got so much great advice. And one of the things that helped me the most was she told me, develop your own self-editing checklist. So this is things that it contains, the things that you know that you struggle with. So if you know that you need to pay attention to your commas because either you use too many or you use too few, then you can say, okay, the number one thing I'm going to go through and look for is my commas, my use of commas. And then you're going to say, okay, once I've gone through my manuscript and looked for the commas, now I'm going to go, and I know I struggle with the passive voice, like were and all that. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to scan my manuscript for passive voice. Another thing I do is I use that too much. So I will have to control find through my manuscript for that and see if that use is justified, that use is justified or not. And but anyway, this just keeps me really organized and systematic about my self-editing process. So it's not just willy-nilly. It's very thorough. I already know what I need to do to make improvements, and doing this and staying on this checklist helps me actually write better drafts because it reinforces what I'm aware of that I struggle with, and when I have to keep going back and fixing that, I actually write better first drafts every time. So use this space to develop your editing checklist, and I've included a lot of space here just so that you can let it evolve. Now, I do encourage you to use pencil, but don't necessarily erase everything. Maybe you want to see over the year how your editing checklist evolves, okay? So, and then per manuscript 1, 2, and all the way through 5, for each of the manuscripts that you listed in the manuscript section, I have a section where you can start comparing editors, because if you write different genres and things, you may want different editors that specialize in that genre. That is incredibly helpful to make sure that you're getting the work out the right way to your market. So, and I've included friendliness here as kind of a catch-all word to say, how well do you get along with this person? And when you're asking for samples and quotes and you're speaking with these people, you get a feel of how well you're going to work with them. If you struggle to communicate with this person, or you think that they take too much time to get back to you, then maybe you want to, talk about, you want to notate that in your professionalism or friendliness sections, because if you need a response within 24 to 48 hours of when you send, a request for feedback or request of status, then you're going to want somebody who can live up to that and who delivers on that right away versus, you hope that they'll get back to you in time. And it's really important to be self-aware of your own requirements and needs as a writer when you're thinking about the editor you want. So it may not just always come down to price. It really can come down to these other factors. And I've, of course, included the email address and website lines here just so that you have it all in one place. You don't have to dig through your email to try to find these people's websites or email addresses or anything like that. It's all in one spot per manuscript. So I really hope you enjoy this section.